Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. This is your source for straight talking, no fluff, business and high performance conversations that add real depth and value to the way bold leaders live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Tara Newman. I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a leader so that you can grow a business that is profit-rich, efficient, and allows you to generate real, tangible wealth for yourself and others. We are here to help you lead with your values, to perform without overwhelm and burnout, and to do your most important work in the world. Hey, it's Tara, and I am so excited to announce that we are offering a brand new program called the Bold Profit Academy Plus, and we're enrolling right now. As we start to wrap up the year, I know many of you have set your sights on how you can make 2022 your best year yet. But you're not looking for just any growth strategies or the same old growth strategies. You're looking for something new. You're looking for something that's profitable and straightforward that helps you keep more of the money you're making and prioritize your mental, emotional, and physical health. The Bold Profit Academy Plus is everything you get in the Bold Profit Academy. It gives you our proven resources around high quality lead generation, sales conversion, and profit first with more mentorship from me. Oftentimes, people want my eyes directly on their business and they want direct mentorship with me. The Bold Profit Academy Plus is where I roll up my sleeves and work with you on your business through implementation calls and hot seats. So if you're looking for increased organization and structure in your business so you can hit your goals with more ease, increased accountability so you do what you say you're going to do even when you have a lot of irons in the fire, oversight into creating the boundaries that are required to put your financial, emotional, and mental health first, and to actually implement the most profitable growth strategies with input from me so you can make 2022 the year you earn money in full alignment with your values, then I want you to head on over to the Bold Leadership Revolution /call and book a 15-minute call with me to see if you are a right fit for this program. I can't wait to hear from you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bold Money Revolution podcast. And I'm really excited to have Casey Hill here today. And he is on the team at Bonjoro. He is the head of growth. He is sitting over sales and marketing. And the reason why I wanted to have Casey on this podcast today was to really talk about how you can use video to add high touch moments to your customer journey. I am a huge Bonjoro fan. We use Bonjoro in our business in lots of different ways. And I really wanted Casey to come on and share his genius and what they're doing over at Bonjoro, because I think it's going to make a really big difference in a lot of business owners' lives. Welcome, Casey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat about this topic with you.
Yeah. So I started using Bonjoro. It's funny. I started using Bonjoro, I stopped using Bonjoro, and I started using Bonjoro again.
That's funny. Yeah, the people cycle. For me, so I actually, before I came to work for Bonjoro, I actually used Bonjoro for a year and a half. I was sales manager for an inbound marketing company called Entreport, and I actually used it. So I was a user of Bonjoro before I came to Bonjoro. It was my kind of arc with it. So that was kind of a cool way. Like when I joined Bonjoro, I knew it really, really well because I'd been using it for a while.
Okay, I love Bonjoro so much. I could totally see that happening to me. I'm just going to shut my business down and just go work for Bonjoro. So the first time I want to share this because I don't know, maybe there are people out there who have tried Bonjoro. How long have you guys been on the market?
We started in 2017. So we've been around for about 4 years now.
Okay, perfect. So I think I started using it in 2018. So
Okay,
you were really new. I think the whole concept in general was new. And, I started using it and I think I stopped using it because just my own stuff. Like I was a little uncomfortable on video at the time. Sure. I was not 100% sure like how it really fit into my business because it's a tool. And so we have to have a clear process in order to know where tools fit. And so Absolutely. I needed to really go back and figure out my process. And then I was able to come back and plunk Bonjoro in as a tool. And some of the greatest benefits that I've seen to using Bonjoro, I just want to talk about this. We were chatting about this before we started, is a lot of the women that I work with are in this complicated relationship with social media. and video on social media. And
Yeah.
I'm not a huge lover of social media. I like stories on Instagram, but I'm not a Reels person. I'm not a Facebook Live person. And really, what Bonjoro has allowed me to do is add very high touch video moments on my customer journey without having to go and like learn reels or use video in ways that don't feel in integrity or aligned with my values. And so for
Yeah.
those reasons, I really love Bonjoro. So let's jump in and talk about, I don't know, where do you want to start on this journey here? Let's talk about why. Why is this
Yeah.
so important right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that when you look at the current landscape of business, we've seen a huge surge in automation. We've seen a huge surge in small businesses are now learning like, hey, I need to have a newsletter, or hey, I need to have this thing. And I'll be careful too when I say need, because I feel like a lot of people say that people need things that aren't necessarily fundamental, just like the social media stuff you're talking about. People say, oh, you need to have a presence on X, Y, and Z. But I think fundamentally, there's a lot of noise, is the high level kind of conversation. There's a lot of noise in the market. So if you're looking to be differentiated, if you're looking to be able to try to really stand out from the hundreds of other providers that are doing comparable things, then I think you need to figure out a way to create relationships. And relationships, I think, are harder and harder, especially for if you're an online business, that can be really challenging. But even in person, we saw with the pandemic and how that threw everything up in the air and people were forced to do things virtually, that there's this huge space right now, and I think huge opportunity for businesses that are able to create genuine relationships with prospects to drive more sales, or with customers to drive more advocacy and retention. I think there's a huge market opportunity, and that's where things like video or other kind of means of personalization, I think, can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah. So I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. So first of all, if you have a business, your business doesn't exist if you don't have sales. Right? That's just it. Casey's the head of growth. He oversees sales and marketing. I'm a business growth coach. I teach sales primarily. And you don't have a business unless you have sales coming in. How do you get sales coming in? Right? Well, no sale happens outside of a relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people forget, especially if they're either head down, like in the business, working on it and not paying attention to building those relationships, or they're using online tools where they think, oh, people are just going to click on a link and buy.
Yeah.
You
I,
know, that's not
I think
happening so much. It's relationship based.
And I think I think what happens is, a lot of people are like, okay, I need to drive traffic for my business. So where do they go? They go to Facebook ads. They start putting budget in, they start running Facebook ads. They get a bunch of people that are, a bunch of leads that are getting generated, but they often see a very small portion of them converting into sales. And a good example, and obviously depending on what type of business, the levers that we use to drive traffic and leads is always different. But webinars is an example. Webinars have become popular.
Right. Mm-hmm.
People say, I want to invite a bunch of people to talk more about what I do, right? And by and large, we see that it works like this. Someone drives ads or they have some sort of promotion technique. They get 200 people registered, and then 40 of those people show up. And then an even smaller percentage obviously actually
Correct.
convert. There's this huge fall off effect that happens. And so that is the type of thing where if you were able to have a conversation with every 200 one of those people that registered, if you're able to like sit down and chat with them and you're able to say, hey, what are you really struggling with? Why are you coming here? What are you really fundamentally interested in? Right? Of course, a massively higher percentage of those people would actually show up to that webinar. And similarly, if you were able to sit down and have a personal conversation with every single person who attended, much more of them would convert and ultimately become customers. So the idea is, if we're not able to actually sit down in person because we live in a global world and people are spread out and so on and so forth, what is kind of the ways that we can start working towards trying to really put our face in front of people and try to have as much of a conversation as we can, even if it's asynchronous, right, with those individuals to start to cultivate that relationship. And so I think that's where you can start to see, hey, if I can make this webinar lever, 20% more efficient, that can have a big downstream impact. And that's like, I did a case study with a company called CXL, and they're an online, they basically run courses for marketers. And that was one of the levers they used it, right? They were like, hey, if we can make this webinar flow much more efficient, we can sell more of our premium services, because they sell like a premium kind of course offering. And so that was like a very powerful pipeline. They could increase that traffic by 20%, downstream sales go way up. So that could be really powerful.
Yeah. And I think that there are lots of different ways. And what I loved about our conversation, actually, before we started rolling this podcast, was you were saying you come from a background where you've worked in automation. And we're talking about something that's very high touch in a world that's obsessed with automation. And yet, Bonjoro does such a nice job at creating workflows, maybe
Yeah.
not automation, but workflows to make doing the high touch parts easier.
Yeah, 100%. And this was really important to us. So like when we came in, we weren't the first video player on the market. And we saw video and we're like, hey, video is this great tool. But as it stood, when we walked into the market, it was very time intensive. There was a lot of steps. It's like you record your video and then you go paste it into the email and then you go write the subject. Like there's a lot of things that are happening. And so we realized that anytime you have a lot of steps to resistance, you're going to get less and less people that adopt it. So we said, look, a lot of times there may be things in someone's business that they want to optimize, right? I'm getting a lot of leads, but I'm not converting them. Or I'm getting a lot of customers that come on board initially, but then they fall off or they stop, they don't leave reviews or they don't do X, Y, Z. So Bonjoro walked in and we said, look, we'll connect in with your CRM system, your email automation tool. And so that when a certain behavior happens, like someone opts in on a form, we'll give you all that information that the person filled out. You can interact with that person right away. We'll set up a template, so we'll pre-package, so you don't need to write the subject line every time. You don't need to write the preview text, all these things that are required. All you have to do is literally click, see the context, record. And so to us, that was kind of the best of both worlds, where you're still able to use systems. We're working with your systems, but the actual process of doing the video itself becomes much simpler and becomes much quicker. So that's kind of what we wanted to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, I think you really reduce some of the barrier to entry around that. I mean, there is absolutely nothing easier than sending a Bonjoro video. So I can do a Bonjoro video in probably 40 seconds. So even if I were to send 10, 20 a day, that's just 20 minutes of my time that I'm spending interacting with people that I care about. I care that people get the support they need in their business. I care that they get their questions answered. I care that they've enrolled in a program of mine. And it makes it very easy. And like the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
And I think too, that's a signal. Like when you take time out of your day to do something for people in your community, they see that kind of like number one, transparency, but also they have that increased connection. I mean, one of the things that's so important, I talk a lot about customer lifetime value. Customer lifetime value, customer lifetime value. We're in a world today where you can't just focus on like, I spent X and I got X, because it's so much more than that. But I think what people miss a lot of times when we talk about customer lifetime value is they don't talk enough about the advocacy part also afterwards, right? It's all about the direct spend. But if you have customers in your community who sing your praises, they post value, they leave glowing reviews, they tell their friends. We live in a market today that's driven by referrals. It's driven by customer proof. When we go to buy things, like how often do we look at reviews before we buy a big purchase? Almost always, right? And so if you can get more of your people in your community to be advocates, I think that's a profound growth lever that you have. And people listen to that. People, if someone else, if they hear it from a third party, that's so much more compelling than your own telling them we're the best, right? And so I think that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, it's really sometimes stunning to me how many problems you have managed to solve in the Bonjoro tool, in the sense that, I'm a Profit First certified consultant. So for me, it's all about like, not all revenue is created the same. There's definitely more profitable revenue than other revenue. Some of our most profitable revenue come from referrals, come from when we can reactivate a past client, come from when we can re-enroll or increase that actual lifetime value of a customer. Because once you've paid to obtain them, keeping them, right? That's the whole point of having like measuring actual, that average lifetime value of a customer. And so the way Bonjoro does this is so fascinating to me. And can we talk about some examples of how that worked? Because one, I was just checking out some of the case studies that you have, these cases. And I found my favorite one. And I hope when I mention it, you know which one I'm talking about, but it was the camp in Washington.
Yep.
And so for those business owners out there who are like, how do I get more referrals? I want Casey to share a little bit about this case study if he can.
Yeah, totally. So what she's referencing, guys, is a YMCA camp director. And what he would do is when someone basically purchased a ticket in for the camp, he would do a personal welcome to the parents, right? It was a kids camp. And personal welcome, just to like show them in the actual video, he would be in like their living quarters, and they were always like themed, like Harry Potter themed or, global world themes. So they were always kind of fun looking. And he would record these videos and basically just say, hey, here's what to kind of expect, and just kind of give them a lowdown of the overall experience they were going to get into. And people were so excited about this kind of experience that they started telling everyone else. And the gentleman, Tim, was looking at his computer, and he was starting to see all of these signups that were coming from a random out-of-state place. He was like really confused, because obviously camps are localized. He's like, where are all these people coming from?
He's in Washington, and he's seeing like tens of thousands of dollars coming in from like Oregon.
Right, exactly. Like just dozens of kids that are basically coming in. And it turns out it was all from referrals, right? It all came from word of mouth, where someone was like so amazed that they told someone else, and pretty soon a whole group got on board and was like, we need to do this. And I think that is the power of advocacy, right? That's the power of having someone else be your trumpeter that's kind of spreading the word about you. So yeah, that's a really fun one. And Tim, the guy who records that, is an awesome guy.
So good. So put yourself, like, I think sometimes what we forget to do as business owners is put ourselves in our customer's position. I think we forget to think about things through the buyer's lens. Yeah. And so here is this camp director. And as you pay this man, and camp costs a good chunk of money for families. I know, I send my kids to camp. They pay him, and then boom, they get a video of Tim, the camp director, letting them know that he's received their payment. I don't know what his video says, but I'm just going to say he's received their payment. He's so excited to be welcoming their children to his camp. And he's like, look, here's some of the living quarters. Let me give you a little bit of a tour around camp.
Yeah.
And listen, we can't wait to see, we're going to have so much fun this summer. And, maybe he gives them what the next step is for them to take. And now you're a family. You've just spent all this money. And of course, there's a little concern. You're probably sending your kids to camp, right? Especially if you're sending them for the first time. But like as a parent, you're always a little nervous. And you get this video from this friendly person. He's showing you around. I mean, that's the best. And then you're excited. You probably show your kid the video. You're showing your friends the video. Look what I just got from this place. Like, this is amazing, right? Yeah. And so people are probably posting about this. Like, we just had this amazing customer experience. When people have good customer experiences, they share that. They share that with other people.
100%. And I think one of the things you hit on too, which is so valuable, is just this concept of trust, right? So in his case, it's like really obvious, right? You're sending your kid somewhere. And like I even in the case study, he actually even talked about this, like a good chunk about how important it is to build that trust with parents. They're some of these people, it's the first time sending their kid for camp. It's scary, right? Mm-hmm. And so seeing a human face and seeing him talk, that immediately puts them at ease. And the larger conversation, though, I think, is that trust is paramount to any type of business, right? Yep. And so whether you're a coach or a consultant or you're in person, like there's always this trust aspect. Why you, right? And the reality is that large organizations sometimes have, like if you go to, I don't know, whatever brand comes to mind, but if you go to like a certain large establishment, they already know stuff about that establishment. But if you're a small player, right, you have to build that trust. You have to be the one to create it. There's less customer proof, there's less noise. And so I think that's what makes it that much more compelling for you to show up in person. They can see you, they can see how you talk, they can, and very quickly someone's going to make an assessment about like, oh, that seems like a friendly person. That seems like the kind of person I could trust. That seems like the kind of person that's going to be candid and forthcoming. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to tell me how it is, right? If it's like a business coach, right? You're going to assess, is this kind of a flowery type of person, or is this someone who's really going to get down to brass tacks and help me solve problems? And so I think that trust component is such a big part of the value of personalization.
Yeah. And I think it actually works both ways too, at least from my perspective, because, as a service provider, you're most likely having a more intimate relationship with somebody than maybe even if you're selling a product. Yeah. And so I always really enjoy when people respond to my Bonjoros, because then I'm like, oh, or they like them or whatever. Cause I'm like, oh, they're somebody who wants to engage in building a relationship with me. Like they appreciate that I just took the time out of my day because I care to connect with them. And that always sends me a message too, because just as much as people are maybe vetting me, I'm vetting my clients.
Sure. Yeah. 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 It's of course, it's always a two-way street. You want there to be a good compatibility and fit. And I know for me personally, that's like probably one of my favorite things about Bonjoro is the responses of just like people getting excited and saying like, I've never gotten one of these. Like,
Yep.
what the heck? Like I can't, like, they're just like so surprised, because it's such a novel thing in the market today that people are like blown away that someone would do that. And so I think that's where, yeah, it makes it fun. And especially as a business, if you have any connection to you, right? Like people who run, say, a course, right? People that buy in often know the course creator, right? That's one of the reasons that they buy in. And so when there's some sort of connection where they know you personally, when they buy in, it makes it that much more special, right? Because the person's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like it's so-and-so sending me a message, right?
Yeah. And I think just overall, because so in terms of, I think that Bonjoro will helps you make sales. And we can talk about how we've given an example of how it's helped get referrals.
Mhm.
But, do you have an example? And I can certainly share my own personal examples, but do you have an
Yeah.
example of like how people use this and it's positively impacted their sales process, meaning they've
Yeah.
converted more sales? I know this
Yeah, for sure.
happens because it happened to me.
Yeah, for sure. I got lots. So I'll start with actually how I use Bonjoro myself, which was in a sales application before I even came to work for Bonjoro. So I
Awesome.
used Bonjoro for over a year before I even came to Bonjoro. I worked for an inbound marketing company. I was a sales manager, and we had a problem of high no-shows, right? So only 60% of the people that booked calls with us actually showed up to our calls. We were doing
Mhm.
all the normal things. We had Calendly reminders on. We were even doing SMS reminders. Couldn't get people to freaking show up to these calls. And so we were like, trying to understand, like, are they bad fit? Like, what's the fundamental problem? So someone recommended Bonjoro. We plugged Bonjoro into our process. We started to send personal videos right after someone booked, just to put a human face to it. Now they weren't no showing to a random anonymous person. They were no showing to me or Darren or Dan or all the people on our team, right? And it cut no shows in half, right? Which was a huge downstream revenue impact for our organization, right? If you have
Right.
20% more people showing up, that leads to a lot more sales. And so that was one of the first ways that I saw a user in that process, like, this is awesome. Then I started using it around proposals, right? So when we were working with like enterprise deals and things had kind of gone quiet, we were looking at a way to kind of get a conversation initiated again. We found that oftentimes like the automated drips that we send out, like, have you checked my proposal? Have you checked my proposal? Like those were just going unanswered. But when it was a human being sitting down, referencing the conversation, like talking about it in a way that was clearly sent and catered just for them, we got way more responses and we had way more people that were like, okay, like, let's do this thing, right? Kind of like shook to action. And so I
Mhm.
think that when it comes to the sales side, there's all the way from kind of the top of the sales process to the bottom of the sales process, right? But initially it's about creating interaction, right? So it can even be like off of an opt-in, right? When someone opts in for a lead magnet, that's the beginning of your sales process. Like you send them a video and you start to create interaction right away, right?
I do that.
With Bonjoros, we about 6 months ago we launched something called Next Gen Templates, where you can embed
I'm
anything.
obsessed with those.
Yeah, you can embed
I'm
anything below. So that's a
obsessed.
great opportunity where like we could put our calendar embedded right underneath, and someone doesn't even have to leave the page. They can just watch a video, go book right away, or they can fill out a form, or they can, watch another video. There's a ton of applications. But that's one of the things we see a lot of people doing, of trying to drive more bookings, right? So from people that kind of fall into the funnel, driving more bookings, which I think is awesome. I actually just got off, this one isn't even published yet, but I just chatted with a marketing agency called Joe Kern, a gentleman named Joe Kern, who had a really cool use case. He basically put a form. So when people opted into his list, he asked them what their number one top marketing challenge was. And it was on a type form. That was what he put right below the video. But then on the right-hand side, he also gave them the ability to book a call. And what I thought was brilliant about giving both options in that application was that he was able to cast a wider net. So the people who weren't ready to hop on a call, he could still try to gather some information from them and continue to work them. But the people that were like, I just want to talk to someone, he gave them that option too. So there's a lot of kind of fun things happening on the sales side.
Yeah. So I think what's really brilliant about that is a couple of things. So we know that, what is it like? Only 15% of your leads are approximately 15% of your leads are ready to buy from you right now. Right. But when they are, like, when you do have somebody who gets on a call with you, then like they're actually ready to buy, is some of what the data says, especially if you're doing a great job with your marketing. So for me, by the time people get on a call with me, for the most part, they're ready to buy. We have this podcast, I do a lot of high touch email. I am available on Instagram. So like, we're out there. We're constantly and consistently marketing. So when people do get on a call with me, they are ready to just make sure that I'm the person that I sound like on a podcast and stuff like that. They want to share some concerns they have with me, what have you. And so it's brilliant because he gives them the opportunity to, if they are that person and they are ready, just book the call right out of the gates. And if you're not ready, let's build that relationship. And that's such a great use of that. So we, depending on the time and depending on my time, I do send a video when people sign up for our opt-in, which is our revenue goal calculator. It comes with a training there. And, I just want to make sure that people are using it. So I'm always like, hey, I just want to make sure if you have any additional questions after watching that video, just feel free. I'm introducing myself. I'm building that relationship. I'm starting that connection because I have a very high touch sales process. Yeah. So that's not the first time you're going to hear from me, but I also don't want the first time you're going to hear from me to be like maybe some direct sales outreach. I want you to know that I care about you and building this relationship and the experience you have, whether you buy from me or not. Yeah. And that's just kind of like how I want how that fits with my values and how that fits with the culture that I'm creating here.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And I also think another really powerful thing, right when someone first enters your ecosystem, if you can get them talking, right? One of my top recommendations for Bonjoro is to tell people to ask questions in their Bonjoros, right? Whether it's trying to get someone to show up for a webinar, whether it's a new lead or whether it's a new customer, if you can ask questions, right, and get someone communicating, they're always going to be more engaged and more emotionally invested because now they're sharing things about their situation, where they're at. And that is the start of the relationship, right? Like one of the things I always say is, look, a relationship by its nature has to come with communication, right? No matter how good your marketing is, you can have the best marketing in the world, but if you're just sending to someone and there's no back to you, that's not a relationship, right? That could be great marketing, but it's not a relationship. So if you're interested in a relationship, I think one of the keys here is ask questions, implore people to share, implore people to communicate. And that's also super, I won't go down this rabbit hole, but I also have a little bit of a background in Postmaster and deliverability. And that's also a huge signal right now. If you want to avoid promotions folders, if you're trying to land in primary inboxes, you need to get people to respond back to you. Because the inbox providers, they're smart. And they say, look, what is the number one most correlated factor between a personal correspondence or between marketing email, right? And they'll look at terms, they'll look at all the things, but the number one most correlated factor is response rates. Because when you write to your friend or your parents or whoever else, the response rates are 70, 80%. Right? Whereas nobody has 80% response rate to your email blast that went out to 5,000 people. So that's such a key factor. If you can get more people communicating, you actually help all the rest of your marketing activities too. So it becomes a positive snowball in your favor.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm not sure, especially with the businesses that I work with that are, these are credible experts, they're delivering services. I don't think that we understand how, well, some of it is one, how people might be a little intimidated to approach us or to get on a call with us, especially depending on what kind of service we're providing or what we're doing, because that often means that this person needs to acknowledge that they have a problem that they need help solving. And that's not always the easiest conversation to have. I'm very aware that I have a podcast, so people might think I'm more popular or cool than I really actually am. Right. And so like, how do we continue to break down this barrier? So, I do a lot of, if somebody is I can see on my email list, if they're interested in a program that we have, or if they're interested in working with me, I'll outreach and just say, hey, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have. Please feel free to share your hesitations or concerns. We can go back and forth here, or you can book a call with me on the link, and I use the next gen form. and that gives them a direct link to my Calendly so they can book a call with me. And it's really just about encouraging people to come forward. And I say on there, I'm like, listen, there's no silly questions. We're not always as clear as we want to be on a sales page. So, feel free to ask those questions. And so many people respond with their questions. They're like, oh, I've been meaning to reach out, or I forgot, or thank you for prompting me, or I felt awkward. And they really are responding to that level of connection.
Yeah, and I think it's authenticity, right? That's what it is at a core level. You're being authentic. You're just getting your personality in front, taking down that barrier, right? And acknowledging, hey, things might not have been perfectly clear on this page. So if so, let me help you, right? And that level, I think, of transparency and authenticity resonates with people. I mean, this is one of the things I think is so key with video, because when people think about using video, they often get so intimidated. They're like, oh, I'm not a video person, right? I can't imagine myself doing video. And part of it is to separate kind of the produced video from the personal video, because they're fundamentally different. When you have a produced video, it's often what I call aspirational. You're trying to create an image that people want to aspire to. But when you're talking about personal video, it's completely different. It's all about relatability, right? It's why that if your kid runs into the clip of your video, or some interruption happens, those videos often do the best. And the reason is because they're relatable. Because the person you're sending the video, they have the same hurdles, the same distractions, the same things that you're dealing with. And so what you're trying to do with a personal video is to say, hey, there's a human on the other side of this, right? And so I think that's the beautiful part of it. The beautiful part of it is the barrier then becomes that much lower, because you just need to hop on and you need to be authentic. When I coach people and teams through, I always say, don't feel like if you're not like a really chipper, high energy person, you don't need to do that in your video. Be you. If you're introverted, then you can talk as you would normally talk. People will be able to see that, right? So just follow your personality type, and the person on the receiving end, their barrier will come down when they see, oh, wow, that person's just being open, right?
Yeah, first of all, those are my favorite videos to receive because they give me so much permission to just be myself. And so those are my favorite videos to send. So typically my Bonjoros, I may or may not be wearing makeup. I'm typically sitting out in my backyard, kind of like wrapping up my day, because I'm just like sitting down and taking a breather and kind of thinking that feels like a good time. Or I'm like shuttling my kids in the car between like activities, and I'm waiting for them to get out of an activity. The car is parked, but I'm waiting for them to get out of an activity, and I'll just, again, like less than a minute for a Bonjoro, right? And so I can be in mom mode and still be sending these Bonjoros from my phone, which is sales activity that is going to make my business grow. And it's like such an incredible win for me. Especially since I really encourage people to sell every day, to start conversations every day and sell. If you want consistent and predictable income coming into your business, you need to be doing that every day. And so Bonjoro just makes it so easy to start a conversation and to connect with somebody and to do that every day.
Yeah, and that accessibility is really important. It's one of the reasons we really leaned into like the mobile application to let people do videos from wherever. Just like you, a lot of our top power users, they do their videos while they're out walking or they're out doing things. I do my videos while not walking all the time. And I want to share quickly because so probably my favorite use case, if I'm allowed to have favorites, is a company called Bewildebeest. And their use case talks about basically how they were able to take a very low cost introductory product. So the Wildebeest is basically an e-commerce company, and he is an artist, him and his wife, and he does like kind of goofy, funny, punny illustrations, right? That's his brand. So he does postcards, but he also does like original prints and higher level stuff as well. And where he uses Bonjoro so masterfully, and how it's been so cool to see how his business has grown, and they're hiring people, and that's a separate thing, but it's been awesome. But basically what he does is he uses videos to get that personality across. So when someone buys a €3 card, he hops on and he kind of has these goofy, funny videos, and we can share in the show notes. People can actually watch the videos themselves, but his whole brand is built around that. And so he showcases that in video, and he's had this huge surge of people that are so blown away that they go from that $3 purchase to an $1,000 original print. And there's this huge upsell funnel. And so I think another thing is like, when you're able to build relationships, you also are able to take that small introductory point and then expand it into something much larger. And that's a story we've heard for a lot of people, that they sell some individual, whether it's a small course or it's some small introductory product, and then through relationships, they end up selling their one-to-one services or their high-end mastermind, or, insert X other thing. And so I think there's incredible power there to be able to, have that ability to asynchronously put yourself out there, let them consume it on their timetable, right? But start that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody forgets about the post-purchase point of the customer journey, right? So they've bought from you. I think they forget about two things. One, that post-purchase point in the customer journey. So they've bought from you, now what? And then the second one is people buy from people. People don't buy from funnels. People don't buy from a social media graphic. They don't technically buy from email. They buy from people. So this person is showing you who he is. And then people are like, I want to buy from him. I want to support that small business. He's a cool person, right? Like he's got a creative vibe about him that I want more of. And so that's why that's so important. And we all have a post-purchase point of our cycle. And when you can deliver what's expected and deliver it better than somebody else, you create that customer loyalty that allows you to, I call it, instead of upselling, I call it upserving, to upserve the people who, you want to make a difference in their world and in their life. And there's lots of different ways that you can use that in the post-purchase phase. Like for me, I welcome when they join my program, they get a video welcoming them in and giving them like a couple of steps that they need to take to get stuck into our program. We continue to use video. I'll sometimes send videos to people who I see showing up for our calls on a regular basis and thank them for their engagement and their participation. My husband runs a manufacturing company where they're manufacturing capital equipment, and it's a very long phase between purchase and delivery of this machine. He doesn't use Bonjoro. I'm literally trying to get him to do that. But what he sometimes does, just as an example to how you can use Bonjoro across like even a manufacturing company, he'll send videos and he's like, hey, I'm out on the shop floor and I want to show you your machine being built.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like. And here are the people who are building your machine. Thanks for buying American and giving them an opportunity to have, employment or whatever he says. But like, they love that. They love seeing the people who touch the product.
100%. And that's actually such a good connection. We've actually done several. One of them is a company called Monk Store, that they became the number one, like men's, what is it called? Like not athletic wear, but basically some sort of like apparel in Denmark. And they basically did it through whenever someone would buy from them, they would literally like show, here's the pair of shoes that you're about to receive. And people were like, what? Like they were blown away. And then the very first use case I ever did was a coffee shop called Ojo's. And what Ojo's did is whenever you bought coffee from them, they were trying to move their one-time buyers to subscription buyers, right? Which is another really cool use case, by the way, for anyone who's in that situation. But they basically, when they would buy, you can go check out these videos on our case study. He would show like the bag of coffee in the actual coffee machines. And he's like, hey, let me take you, like show you with how we make this. And people were like, they couldn't believe that. Like they couldn't believe this person. And his videos were still only 30, 45 seconds long. But it was like that 30 to 45 seconds where he would say, hey, Casey, let me show you how this Nicaraguan coffee that you're about to receive is made. He would show them a quick thing of like the beans being, it was just like, it was so cool. And people were like, okay, like I'm never buying from anyone else because it was such a cool experience. And in his case, he was able to move a huge portion of his buyers. I think he added something insane like 75K in monthly recurring revenue from transitioning one-time buyers to subscribers. Like it was like mind-blowing. And that, I think if I'm remembering again, this was the first case study, so it was a while back, but I want to say it was like in 5 to 6 months that was accomplished. It was a huge, huge surge in his subscription revenue from those efforts. I could not agree more. I think that's something that's so powerful. If you have the ability to showcase, if you do sell a product, right? If you can showcase it, that's awesome.
And here's the other thing that I love about this. Most people won't do it. Most people won't do it. Let's be honest. Most business owners out there won't do it. they'll be like, oh, it's too much. I don't want to put my face on there. They're going to make something about themselves about it. They're going to be like, well, that's a lot of people that I need to sell this to send videos to. This is going to take me a lot of time. They're going to find all the reasons why not to do it.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's like even an inkling curious about how this might work and are interested in trying it, you will stand out.
Yeah.
In an
Yeah,
automated
100%.
world where everybody wants things to be easy and at the snap of their fingertips, people aren't going to do this. So go do it.
Yeah.
Go sign up for Bonjoro and start sending your videos.
and what I tell people too is, be data driven. So a good example is there's a company called
Bonjoro has the best metrics.
Yeah. So that's one of the beautiful things about this. Like, we had a company called Cure. They're a large, like, top 500 in the world charity. And they basically, someone reached out to me. They were like, oh, this technology seems cool. There was a conversation that happened, but then we had to sell the board. And the board was kind of like, I don't know about this. Like, they were old school, right? They've been doing fundraising the same way for a long time. And they were like, I don't know if this makes sense. So we basically got them to settle on this. I said, look, here's what I want you to do. Do half your process the exact way you're doing it right now. I don't want you to change anything, right? Do your phone calls, your cold email campaigns, or whatever. And then for the other half, try video. And I want you to keep track of how long it takes you. So keep track of how long it takes you. And then at the end, we just have a math equation. I spent X hours, we got X result. And lucky for us, it worked out in our favor. They raised $10,000 more in the cohort that was sending personal videos and Bonjoros. And that was well worth their investment of whatever it was, like 8 hours of time to send these videos. And so I think that's, the other thing is, if you're like a quantitative person, feel free to design the test. Look at, in Bonjoro, we'll track your opens, we'll track your watches, we'll track your clicks, responses. So we'll give you all the data so that you can look at that. And your historical data, right? You know what you've been doing with your other system. So you can create that foil.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And also what Bonjoro has helped me do was convert people quicker.
Yeah.
So people have converted quicker through my using Bonjoro than, so it's not just amount of how many people convert, it's also ease of conversion and speeding up conversion. So, I want to start rolling us out of here, but I want to leave them with all the benefits of using Bonjoro in their customer journey. And so I've just jotted a couple down, and Casey can fill in. So increased customer retention, increased income, increased customer experience, like increase your customer satisfaction with their experience with you, increase referrals. What are some others? Are there any more that we can add here?
Yeah. So conversion rates, right? Yep. So like one of the things I didn't even talk too much about, but the way that we use Bonjoro, like at Bonjoro, is we welcome every single new trial. So we get 1,500 to 2,000 trials, and we welcome every single one with a personal video, and that has dramatically increased our trial conversion. So if you're a kind of person who has a space there, so I think conversion is definitely one. Did you say reviews?
No, but that's one that I've been wanting to try.
That's another one. Yeah. Reviews is a great outlet just to, like, when you personally ask someone, hey, it would mean a lot if you could let me know about your experience. I will guarantee you right now to everyone listening here, you will get way more buy-in than your automated email that goes out to everyone 2 weeks after and says, like, can you leave us a review? I will guarantee it. So that's another application, like gather customer proof, gather feedback around that, which is awesome. And I probably shouldn't say this on a live podcast, but I'm going to anyways, is that we're also working on a testimonial feature. And I say I shouldn't say this because engineering always yells at me when I forecast new features, because I don't know the exact time drop, but it's going to be amazing for that. We're actually going to have this whole prepackaged thing where they can easily record a video back to you. It'll store it in a library. You'll have this whole, it's going to be super cool. So it'll make even gathering testimonials and reviews even that much easier to give you that really powerful customer proof. So I think, like conversion rates, reviews, using it. I think you covered on a lot of the other core fundamental ones, which is like driving up customer lifetime value, driving up retention, driving up engagement. And one other just really quick comment, like on that increased time, Tracy Phillips, who's another case study we have on the blog, she's a coach, a video coach, and her major pipeline was she would try to drive people into her Facebook community. Once they were in her Facebook community, she knew they would convert dramatically faster than if they didn't join her Facebook community. And so that was a major, she jumped from 7% of her leads joining her Facebook community to 55% joining her Facebook community with the Bonjoro. And that dramatically increased her time to conversion. Exactly what you said. So same application.
Yeah. And showing up to webinars.
Yeah. So attendance is big. Attendance is big. And also I mentioned this a little earlier, but the upsell application is also big, right? The ability, like I talked about with Bewildebeest too, if you offer more than one service and you're trying to upsell and move that person up, using video to create that interaction and goodwill is also a driver of where you can do that upsell, or just personally inviting people to like say, hey, I got this new workshop. I know you were part of this other thing that we did. Just wanted to make sure I personally invited you. Now it feels very concierge and kind of red carpet where you're personally inviting them, right? Versus just like the generic, we're doing this thing next Friday, right?
What are some of the hesitations or objections that you hear from people around using Bonjoro?
Yeah. So the major objections when it comes to Bonjoro or kind of video in general, we touched on a few of these, but people are uneasy about being behind a camera, right? So we talked about that in a little bit of length. Like that's probably the number one. People are worried about the time, which you always mentioned. That's number two. Like, like this sounds cool, but like I have 100 people. If I was doing this for opt-ins, I have 100 people I need to do each week, right? And so I think that's the other thing that, there's a lot of ways you can kind of deal with that challenge. The first thing 100%. I tell people though is just to get in there and try it, because often it doesn't take as long as people think it does. When people first start Bonjoro, almost invariably, even when we bring on new employees, like when I hire people on my team, I still see the same thing. They re-record their Bonjoros a bunch of times when they first start. And then once they get comfortable with it, they stop doing that.
So part easy.
Part of it is just learning, like, it's okay if it's imperfect. This is part of the kind of situation.
So I'm going to share what got me over the hump with using Bonjoro, and then some of the benefits that have come out of it that are not monetary. So I signed up for a webinar with KPC. Were you on that webinar with her? Was that you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we love.
Okay. Yeah. So I signed up for KPC is an active campaign specialist, and she was doing a joint webinar with Bonjoro, with Casey. I don't know what about it attracted me to it, but I was on the webinar. And that was the first time I actually was introduced to Kay. And I was like, oh, she's a really cool woman. And I like what she's talking about. I want to get on her email list. And then I signed up for something with her and she sent me a Bonjoro. And Kay is just such a lovely, down-to-earth human, she's just the best. And so she sends me this Bonjoro. She's sitting in her backyard and she just rattles it off. And it was like, no big deal. And I was like, I can do that. Like she was just in her element, and there was nothing that was produced or even overdone about Kay herself. And so it was like, I was really inspired by how, and Kay is, she's just kind of understated. Like, and she's quiet, she's a bit understated. She's funny, she's British, but she's just like kind of understated compared to what you kind of see out there in the world of online businesses. And I really, really resonated with that because I'm an introvert. I can be quiet, although I'm loud because I'm a New Yorker, but and I've always had kind of like, oh, do I look okay? Am I saying the right thing on video? And so she really inspired me to just show up and try it. And I allowed myself to just show up however I was in that moment. As people were joining my email list, I allowed myself to fumble over my words and not always be like perfect speech. I allowed myself to be quirky and improv and in the moment. And it really got easier and easier over time. But what it actually did was open me up to video in other forms. It also helped me get my message across, the thing I'm trying to say, in a more succinct way.
Yeah.
And so it was actually building a skill aside from having a positive impact on my bottom line.
Absolutely.
It was building my confidence. It was building my comfort level on video. And so when I have people in my program try to send Bonjoros, I said, don't even make it about the end result. Make it about mastering this skill of showing up and talking, of communicating, of, having confidence behind putting yourself on camera, around, being more succinct in what you're trying to say, and let it be fun, and let it be like a way to learn something and build a skill instead of just having this outcome goal. And that really worked for me. So I just wanted to share that as well.
I totally agree, by the way. I felt the same way myself, just like learning to do videos, and then the positive reinforcement for when I would go out and record these videos, like out walking in my neighborhood or whatever else, and people were so excited, you then get that like affirmation from outside. You're like, hey, it's okay if I'm not, totally set up or don't look professional video and light studio and whatever, and there's shadows from the trees and everything else going on. People still love these and they're excited. And so you get that affirmation to keep wanting to just show up and do it. And also just a quick note on Kay, like we're crazy big Kay fans over at Bonjoro because she's just been phenomenal. But what I love about Kay too is her journey is just so remarkable. Like she started really small, right? And she grew through relationships. She grew this incredible footprint. Now she's one of the top active campaign consultants. I meet up with the active campaign team themselves because we're really close integration partners with them. And they all are like, we love Kay. Kay's amazing. Kay's one of our top consultants. And just to watch myself in the course of 2 years go from relatively unknown to the top consultant for $100 million a year business in active campaign. And she built that through relationships, right? Not saying Bonjoro was the sole responsible, but she built it through relationships. And so that is such an inspiring story for people that are kind of looking to take that business to the next level, feeling intimidated in those early stages. It's like invest in your customers, invest in your people, because when you leave those experiences like Kay did for you, where someone's like, wow, that's really cool, right? That becomes, the start of that relationship. And now here we are, me and you talking about how awesome Kay is, right? Yeah. And that's her people, her community becomes her advocates, where we're now all hyping her up. And if anyone, needed an AC consultant, I'm sure she would be the first one that me or you would recommend. So that's 100%. That's kind of the thing that you create, which is fun.
Yeah. And she really inspired me to be that person for my people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so if for whatever reason you are not already on my email list, sign up. We have the revenue goal calculator. I will send you a video. I'm also going to drop the Bonjoro link for you to sign up for Bonjoro. I am an affiliate. I affiliate for very, very few, if any, people, but I am just truly obsessed with so many aspects of Bonjoro, not just the tool, but by their team, like Casey, by their customer service, by their trainings that they have, by the ease of use of the interface, of how easy, I'm not the biggest techie person, but how easy they make it to create these workflows. And I would really love to see more people using this tool. So thank you so much, Casey, for coming on and having this conversation. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes for you to sign up and try Bonjoro. Please feel free to reach out to me. I know the Bonjoro team is going to be reaching out to you if you sign up, and we're more than happy to support you in being really good bears. Bonjoro has a bear. So be part of the bears community.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I love to talk about relationship building. I feel like it's so important, and we're so excited to have you as part of our community. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Casey. If you've found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.